All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Misurell. I'm a clinical psychologist with the NYU Child Studies Center, and I'm the clinical director of the NYU Child Studies Center's New Jersey office. We are here to discuss the all-important topic of balancing work and family. The name of our webinar this afternoon is the Acrobatic Parent, Juggling Family and Work on a Tightrope. Just before we begin, you should know that if you have questions for me, you can submit those questions anytime today by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel that's on the right side of your screen, and I'll be able to answer as many of them as possible at the end of the presentation. So let's get started. So balancing work and family in the 21st century, quite a challenge indeed. And this is a topic that gets brought up all the time with me in therapy and treatment. I have parents that are coming to me, just to give you a little bit of a background, who have children who are struggling with ADHD, ODD, anxiety, OCD, trauma, a full array of different disorders. And, you know, one sort of unifying theme that I come across is parents really struggling to balance, you know, not just work and family, but also just different aspects of the family. So balancing is very difficult for families in this day and age with all the time demands and commitments that are out there. So it's very challenging, adds a lot of stress, and it makes for parenting quite difficult and challenging at times, and even more so for those families who have children who are struggling with some sort of behavioral special need or psychiatric disorder. So there are many roles of the working parent today. You could be a career person. You can be a parent, of course. These are important aspects of your life. You might also be a homework coach for your child. You are also an extracurricular activity manager for your child. In today's society, kids are very busy after school typically, and who's bringing them to these activities? Oftentimes it's a parent. Sometimes if you can't be a parent, you've got to get a babysitter or a relative to help out. These are all things that we need to stay on top of, and it causes a lot of stress and time management issues, of course. You have to be a scheduling and logistics operator. Who knew you needed all these areas of expertise in order to be an effective working parent? Play date organizer, of course, because you know, kids don't often just go out the door and play in a lot of neighborhoods. You have to organize it, play it, plan it with the other families ahead of time. All this takes a lot of forethought. Of course, you have to be a driver to the various activities, be a cook, be a housekeeper, and more. I mean, there seems to be no end to the different roles and responsibilities of the working parent today. And that just means there's just not enough time in the day. It causes a lot of stress. We're constantly running. We're constantly on the move. You know, questions faced by the working parent are very, very pressing. How do I prioritize? And some of the questions that we got ahead of time before the webinar. How do I prioritize? How do I get organized? How do I find the time? How do I handle the stress? And many more questions, you know, of that sort. This can leave us feeling quite overwhelmed at times, where we're just like, trying to pull our hair out because, you know, nothing seems to be enough. We're always treading water. So here's some quick suggestions that I'm going to put out there, you know, in the time that we have for this webinar. I'm going to focus on different strategies that can help keep things more organized, more focused, and to help prioritize a little bit. So let's start with a prioritization plan. I recommend beginning with what's called a values inventory. And what this means is you sit down and you reflect and think about all of the things that you value most as a parent. You know, is it what aspects of your family? Of course you value your family, but what aspects of it? What sort of roles do you value and do you envision of yourself? Do you envision that you want to be very active in your child's after-school curricular activities? Do you envision that you want to be really involved with their religious studies, if that's something that your family does? If you're at a point in your career where you need to be very ambitious, well, that's completely respectable, and that's something that you need to value. But I kind of recommend for parents to get their values in order and really focus on what's like the 2 or 3 most important aspects of being a parent that you value most right now. And then you're going to set concrete goals consistent with those values. And you're going to practice letting go and cutting out the other things that you really don't care. So for instance, let's say you said, I really want to be involved in my child's sports or something like that. And in order to do that, I need to cut back in certain ways at the job. Well, that's a very respectable position to have, and you and your family should come to an agreement about that. And if that's what you want to do, go about the order of cutting or minimizing what you can. People are not always able to, given financial constraints and other interests. But with what you can do, try to cut it out or let it go, and fit and create the schedule and the plan that is most aligned with your values and what you want. Next, we think about organization. Establishing schedules is incredibly important. And establishing schedules in conjunction with your family. I'm going to talk about this later in this webinar, talking about how to put things in place and really stick to it, really creating routines and organized ways of doing things, so that you can sort of cut down on the chaos that happens in a very busy week. Matching the schedule to your priorities, right? So again, to this example, if you want to be really involved in some kind of extracurricular activity with your child, building that into the schedule, trying to, within reason, build that into what you're doing at work, and try to make sure that you're following through with your commitments. Part of organization is also leveraging support networks. So if you have friends, family, neighbors in the community, relatives who are willing to help out, because they care about you, they care about your family, and also if you're able to help out in exchange with them in some sort of reciprocity, that's really important. I'm thinking about carpools, I'm thinking about people taking turns picking up kids from school, babysitting, and that sort of thing. Leverage those support networks. There's no shame in asking for help. Keeping lines of communication open for feedback. Check in with your spouse or your partner. Check in with your kids and the other people involved in your family's life to make sure things are working. And if they're not, see what you can tweak and change. And then working with your spouse or partner to share burdens and responsibilities. This is very important. And in families where there's two working parents, shouldering the burdens equally, or dividing the labor equally is very important. It's probably not fair for one person if both are working, for one person to be doing all the work at home or all the domestic work, and the other person doesn't have to do any of it. If you're both working, my recommendation is try to divide it up in a way that's most balanced, because when people perceive that they are working together in a concerted way on the same team, that's very good and very reinforcing for the marriage as well as for the family. Establishing boundaries is quite important. Work boundaries. So practice establishing and negotiating a schedule that works for you and your family. Again, it's not always possible, and we need to work, we need to earn money. So I'm not saying that in a flippant way, but within reason, whatever is possible, try to set those and establish those schedules. If you need to leave at a certain time every day, feel comfortable expressing that to your supervisor or to your team or whoever you're working with, that you need to leave at this time to pick up the kids or to make it to this appointment or make it to this game. There's no shame in asserting your interests regarding your family. And then also setting out boundaries around the family, like not allowing other time to invade or creep into your family time. I'm thinking about getting distracted from other work calls or emails or other things that might come up and interrupt. When you're with your family, try to boundary that and keep it sacred as much as possible. Screen time is something that is often a hot topic in child mental health right now. And there's often questions about, screen time, how much screen time should you have? I'm an advocate of using screen time strategically. There should be limits of the usage for both parents and for children, because we can't, in good faith, tell our children not to be on the iPad all the time if we're constantly on our phones. So I would suggest, after school, that time between after school and when you have them at home and when it's bedtime, try to minimize your own usage of the screens. Do what you've got to do, spend the time with your kids, work with them on the homework, do the extracurricular activities, but try to be present as much as possible. And for those of us who telecommute or work from home, practice putting up the boundaries for work at home. I know that's difficult, like if you're working from your home office or if you're working on the couch in your laptop and the kids are running around and you might get aggravated with that, it's really hard. So try to think ahead so that you're not in that situation where you're getting aggravated with your kids, distracting you from your work. Trying to keep those boundaries, even when you're at home, is kind of cleanly separated as possible. It's something that I would suggest. So this leads us to the next part of the webinar, where we're going to talk about parent power. Parent power, this is an abbreviated version of a workshop that I do training parents in behavior modification, behavior management strategies, ways of really making things work more efficiently at home. Parent power is a series of steps that I have built into the acronym POWER, and we're going to go over each one in turn. And I should mention that this idea, these are 5 steps that help us to keep things working quicker or more efficiently at home, give us greater control over the home environment, and help to keep things a bit more organized. So the first part of POWER is the P in POWER, which is put structures in place. So the first element of that is setting behavioral expectations. So this is an example for what you might use in terms of your terminology with younger children. Follow directions, control your body, and be polite. These are what I call the 3 golden rules of behavior management, because any behavioral infraction can fall into one of these 3 categories. It's really important to set out what you're expecting from your kids, and to set that up. Putting it into house rules and spelling it out explicitly is very helpful. If you just define what your goals are and your expectations for your children, they kind of know the lay of the land, and they know better how to navigate through. Scheduling is incredibly important. So there's weekday schedules and there's weekend schedules. Obviously, the weekday needs to be much more structured, but I'm a big believer in planning things ahead, setting things on the schedule. If you're a parent of young children in particular, if you're a parent of a child with special needs or psychiatric disorder or any other kinds of needs or special considerations, it's even more important to be very structured. There's a lot of talk out there in like the parenting world about hovering parents or helicopter parents or overscheduled children. And what I have been saying is that for parents of children with special needs or behavioral problems or psychiatric illnesses, it's really important not to listen to that noise. It's really important to be very structured. It's very important to keep your kids very busy and keep them active, because in my experience and what research tends to show is that the kids that do worse are the kids that are less supervised, have more idle time, have less activity. Those are things that tend to breed more problems versus the kids that have a lot of things on the calendar. So please fill up that calendar. Routines very important. Every day should look like the same. Kids respond well to a structured routine. They know what to expect. It decreases anxiety. As a counterpoint example, when working with children who are in the child welfare system, you see, or who have been in foster care, these are kids who were taken from their homes, neglectful or abusive homes. Some of the key characteristics of those environments is a very chaotic household where the children don't know what to expect. The routines change from day to day. It's kind of up in the air. They don't know what to expect. That creates a lot of anxiety, and it can lead to a lot of behavioral problems as well. So set those routines, the morning, after school, the evening routine. Make sure that everyone knows what to expect and what's coming next. The next step in the parent power stage of the parent power process is offering incentives. So what I mean by offering incentives is this. Kids or people in general are motivated by incentives, by rewards, by consequences. These are things that govern our behavior, whether we kind of think about it or not. And I strongly recommend using behavior incentives, positive reinforcement strategies, in order to get children to move in the direction we want them to move. A positive reinforcement is the most effective behavior training strategy, and what that looks like, it can take the form of many different things. People use charts, sticker charts, star charts. And a lot of people at home listening to this might think, oh, I've tried that, it doesn't work. The fact of the matter is there's a million different ways you could do a reward system. It's got to be, the incentives have to be aligned, though, with the interests of your family and the interests of your kid. They have to be meaningful incentives to get them moving and get them motivated. The types of reward systems that I usually recommend using is tying it to, say, a privilege that you can give and take at ease, like screen time. And in my experience, screen time is like the best reward or incentive that you can use, because the kids often always just crave it, and you can take it away without feeling guilty because it's really a frivolous privilege. And what I often recommend is, okay, let's set this up. So every time we see our child doing what we want them to do, we're going to give them positive label praise. We're going to say, Johnny, great job following directions, using the terminology that I laid out before. And then we can give them points for that, or we could give them super checks, like just check marks on a piece of paper, however you want to keep tally of it, and then you can cash those checks, those points in for time accessing their screens. So this is a quick way that you can start using positive reinforcement approaches to children, in particular like the elementary and middle school age children, and link it to them and help them understand that their behavior is, or their rewards and their incentives are contingent on the behavior that they are showing. They can't just get their phone time for doing nothing. It's not just something that they're entitled to. They have to earn it. If they give you a hard time about it, you're going to say that this is just working to earn a paycheck. Just like mom or dad has to go to work to earn a paycheck, you don't get paid if you don't go to work. Well, you're not going to get this privilege of screen time or the iPad time or what have you unless you're actually doing the work. And the work for the child is actually following the rules, meeting their expectations, cooperating with doing their homework, cooperating with their hygiene, like taking a shower, getting dressed, getting out the door. The more that they are cooperating, the better everything's going to work at home. You're going to feel more in control and more balanced if you kind of tighten up on this end and get better cooperation. But we don't want to just get cooperation by using fear and force. We really want to use a lot of the positive reinforcement. It's kind of like this idea of where you're using carrots and sticks to get the horse to the water. Well, you really want to start with the carrots, really use the carrots, the positives, to get them leading. And you use those consequences or those sticks as a backstop in case in extreme circumstances, like if there's some severe behavioral disruption or defiance, like hitting or aggression or cursing you off or something like that. In those instances, that's when you have to resort to the consequence. But really leaning heavy on the positive reinforcement helps things move forward in a better way. And it also helps the relationship that you have with the child. So get into the habit of describing and praising the desired behavior that you want to see. The next aspect of the parent power process is working hard. Now that sounds kind of trivial, like of course you got to work hard, but it's no small matter. In order to do any of these things effectively, in order to create a household in which you're in control and you have greater balance between your home and your work, you need to be consistent in doing all of these different things. If you're just going to be in the habit of doing the positive reinforcement approach for a few days, maybe it works at the beginning, but then if you're not consistently doing it, it's going to go away. Oftentimes what I talk about with families that I'm working with is that behavior change. If you're trying to change your children's behavior, trying to change your family's behavior or their communication and their relationship style, you need to do the work day in and day out. It's kind of like if you had a personal trainer and you were trying to meet some kind of weight loss goal. If you went to that trainer once a week and they worked out with you and told you what to do at home with your diet and your exercise, but then throughout the week you weren't doing it, then you're not going to see the results. In a similar way, if I'm working with folks, if I'm consulting and they're meeting with me for therapy once a week, that's not going to make the difference. What makes the difference is if you go home and actually do all of these things all these different strategies that we're discussing. So be consistent in doing that. Always be prepared. So if you know the next day you have a trip for the kids, you pack the lunches before. If they have school the next day, pick the outfits out for work, for school. Make your life easier. I know it's aggravating to have to do that the night before, but anything that you can do just to make the machine work more smoothly, I would recommend. Again, practicing positive praise and energizing the positive. If your kids are getting dressed and they're doing what they got to do, don't ignore that. You've got to say, great job, thank you so much for moving along, thank you so much for cooperating, that means a lot to me, that means a lot to the family, you're really helping out. You got to be giving this constant positive feedback when it's deserved in order to get that positive energy and positive momentum. Plan ahead. If you're going out to the restaurant, bring the iPad, bring the snacks, bring the other coloring books, whatever you got to do to keep the kids entertained. If it's the younger kids, for the older kids, allow them to use the phone or if what have you to keep them occupied if you really can't do it otherwise. And if not, try to engage them in conversation, try to organize time when you're with them so that they are spending the time with you in a positive way and they're not, off checked out or doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Make sure that you are checking in with your kids about their schedule, making sure that they're, eating at the right times, getting enough sleep. If kids are, if their sleep cycles are disrupted, if they haven't gotten enough, if they're not eating right, their moods are going to be impacted, they're going to be crankier, they're going to be less cooperative, everything kind of snowballs downward from there. The E in parent power stands for emotional regulation. And when I'm talking about emotional regulation, I'm talking about our emotional regulation as parents. So self-care is very critical. We have to strive for this work-life balance. How do you do that? Well, like we're talking about today, really emphasize building out the time that you need to spend with your family, carving out that free time to rejuvenate, even if it's like an hour every day to like veg at the very end of the day and watch TV or read a book or talk with your friends or talk with your partner, whatever it is. You got to keep yourself fresh, because if you get burnt out, it's going to affect your parenting tremendously, and it's going to affect your ability to balance work and your family. There's a lot of relaxation and stress relief opportunities out there. There are gyms everywhere nowadays. There are a lot of places where you can take meditation classes, yoga. There's spas and salons. There are apps like this app called Headspace that you can use on your phone to help you with mindfulness practice, with deep breathing, with progressive muscle relaxation. There are a lot of options out there. You don't have to go to Tibet to find some kind of higher ordered being to teach you about meditation anymore. You can find this in your bookstore. You can find this on your phone. But take advantage of these resources that are available. Also, finding that quality time as a couple and as a family is really important. You have to keep watering the plants of the family. You have to keep it rejuvenated. If you are all business all the time and it's only about getting to school, getting to work, getting out the door, if it's only that and you're not building in some of these other fun things like hanging out, going to the movies, going to the park, or doing things with your church or your synagogue or other religious or cultural groups, if you're not nurturing your family in that way, things start to feel stale kind of quickly. Same thing goes for if you're in a marriage. Making sure that as much as you can, take the time to go on dates, to spend time together throughout the month, stay connected, and really work on communicating on your feelings and on your needs. Because if people are not communicating in the family, then resentment can breed quite quickly, and that leads to a whole host of other problems: stress, lashing out, behavioral problems from the kids. Again, creates this kind of negative cycle. So we've got to keep that communication line open, and we have to really nurture this through quality time together. Now, the R is the last step in the Power and Power process, and it stands for role modeling. A role model is someone who inspires others to be their best self. That's what I call role model. And when we're talking about this, thinking of yourself as role model, you are like the head of the household. You and your spouse are the head of your household, and you want your kids to emulate your behavior. So in order to do that, we have to be respectful and fair with our children. We have to be calm and confident. I say put your game face on, meaning like you might be very stressed, very anxious, and worried about what's going on right then and there. You might have work thoughts on your mind. But whatever you do, don't show that to the kids. Try to project calm. Try to project confidence. They are going to respond better when you're speaking to them calmly and methodically, not like just aggravated and yelling or losing it. Be honest and true to your word. So if you promise something, or if you say, I'm going to do this, try your best to fill it out. If you're going to make it to that game, tell them you're going to make it, and please do make it. We don't want to create a situation where the kids don't feel like they can rely on you, or they're insecure about whether or not you're going to be there when they need you. Here's a brief role modeling exercise. Really, we'll do this as like a thought experiment. I call this the good boss, bad boss exercise. And the way this works is we think about first, who is the worst boss you've ever had in any level. It could be someone you had when you worked a job in high school. It could be someone now. It could be something you did in college or wherever. Think about the worst boss or worst supervisor you've ever had, and what are the attributes that describe that person. Oftentimes, you'll find that person, these are some of the responses that I get. That person is arrogant, or they're demeaning, they're quick to anger, they lash out, they take credit for things that they shouldn't have taken credit for, they sort of kiss up and kick down, they don't praise you or give you credit for good things that you're doing. These are many of the attributes that I hear for this bad boss. So we don't want to be the bad boss in our household. We don't want to be overly harsh with our kids and lash out and then ignore them when they're being good. We don't want to just be aloof or dismissive or arrogant or sarcastic. We need to be doing things in a much better way. So that brings us to the other example, which is the good boss. So then the next step in this process is to think about the best boss you've ever had at any level in your life, the best boss or best supervisor. And oftentimes the attributes that describe this person are somebody who is very calm, someone who's respectful, someone who you want to emulate, someone who's inspiring, someone who really can pick you up when you're struggling, someone who doesn't ignore when you're doing something wrong, but gives you constructive feedback and helps you feel like there's a pathway to doing things better. That's the person we want to be as the good boss. We want to be supportive and nurturing with the kids. We want to be mixing this sense of higher expectations, but also warm and supportive. So this brings us to the end of the webinar. I apologize if I was going through a lot of material to cover. And now we're at the questions part of the webinar, and I'm going to just take a look at some of the questions. First question, sometimes I lose my temper with my children. I'll take a moment and come back to them and apologize, even though I lost my patience. This happens often. Can you recommend on a way to stop myself from yelling or getting to the point where I lose my temper? I would recommend, this is an excellent question. It happens a lot. We definitely don't want to blow up on our kids, but we are human and it's going to happen once in a while. So I would recommend taking a break when you start to feel your heartbeat racing and your breath and your breathing starting to get very rapid and your body getting very tense. I would say to them, I need to take a breather, and you just step away, go to the other room, go to the bathroom. You could even say, I need to go to the bathroom. And you just take a few deep breaths and do something else on your phone even, just to get your mind off of it. And even if you give yourself a couple minutes of breathing and looking on the phone at Facebook or whatever, something that doesn't trigger you, you're going to find that you are more relaxed. And then when you come out, then you calmly get back engaged with them. But yeah, managing the temper is quite difficult. Another question is, how do you recommend we handle a 2.5-year-old who might tantrum for 15 to 20 minutes and then goes on another tantrum this length as a result of not wanting to take turns, share, get what they want? So this gets to this idea of we want to build up a whole system. So if you were doing like a reward system with a young child and they had to earn points to get their privileges or get their reward, you would say things like following directions and controlling your body in this example. And when they're acting like that, you say, okay, you're not controlling your body, so you're not going to be able to earn whatever it is that you're trying to earn, and I'm sorry. And then kind of let them temper tantrum a bit on their own. Then you come back to them and you try to say, okay, you're making the choice not to earn your privilege or your reward because you are not you're not complying, you're tantruming. If it's a really young child, like a 2.5-year-old, and they're not really at that age open to rewards and consequences kind of above their head, I would just try to distract them. And when they're tantruming, whatever you do, don't give in to them. Your goal then in those moments is to try to get to the place where they can be calm. So I would just try to distract them by, bringing up other conversation, making jokes, making funny faces, try to get them moving on, say, oh, look, what's the next shiny object that you could put in front of them just to get them moving in another direction. But whatever you do, don't get into it and don't give in to the tantrum. After a while of doing this procedure, those tantrums start to lose their intensity. Remember, with tantrums, the function of the tantrum is for the kid to get whatever it is that they want. So if you give into it, you're reinforcing it. One other question, what is your thought on timeouts for toddlers? At the 2-year-old, timeouts are fine for 2-year-olds. You take them, you put them in some place where they're in the corner or on the stairs or some place where they're out of the action and not stimulated, and you tell them you've got to stay there until you can be calm. I don't recommend putting a timer on it. I want them to just demonstrate that they can be calm and in control. And once they do that, I want you to have a very short memory. I want you to wipe the slate clean, tell them, I'm really proud of you for calming down. You did a great job, or, calming down and turning around. Now you can come back and play. Just try to then have them move it on. But, timeouts are just fine. Any suggestions for parents for not on the same page? If it's really bad, you might want to seek marriage counseling. But if you're going to do it yourself, I would say, have a sit down with your spouse and say, things are not working for me. This is really unhealthy, or I'm unhappy with the way our family is going. Let's discuss ways that we can get on the same page. And if you need another person to help mediate, then seek that out. But if you just ignore it and brush it under the rug, it's going to continue to fester. So I would recommend either intervening through civil communication about it or seeking some kind of other third-party intervention. And the last question are, what activities do you recommend for kids with ADHD to occupy themselves? I recommend having their after-school activities booked. Like every day they should have something. It could be like gymnastics, karate, baseball, soccer, basketball, art. I don't care. Whatever it is, get them occupied, because when they're occupied, they can focus their energy in a more constructive way. Kids with ADHD, when they're not structured, they tend to be attracted to more chaos. So that's the last question we have today. Let's see. Before you go, I want to just thank you for joining me today on behalf of the Whole Child Study Center. Once you leave the webinar, you'll receive a survey, and we would appreciate it if you would complete it. You will also receive a follow-up email within a day or two with a link recording of today's presentation. And we hope you can join us for the next webinar, Tics and Tourette Disorder, What Families Should Know to Get the Help They Need, with Dr. Rebecca Berry. And that's on Tuesday, May 15th at 1 p.m. Thanks again. Goodbye.